If we want high-quality schools, we have to pay for them. Several communities in San Mateo County have voted higher taxes to do just that. Stay with us and see.
In January, it's so nice. Walk swimming on the sliding ice. Sip hot chicken soup with rice. Sipping once, sipping twice. Sipping chicken soup with rice. It ain't right to go away. Far stay home all day. And dream about hot soup all day. Home right once, home right twice. Eating chicken soup with rice. Chicken soup with rice.
Hi, I'm Bruce Grantham, and welcome to Our Children, Our Future, a program about education in the South San Francisco Unified School District. Public schools are paid for, supported, if you will, mainly by local property taxes. This state support has had a hard time keeping up with the cost of running schools. Many school districts have gone to their communities to provide additional support by passing general obligation bonds and even parcel taxes. I've asked Ron McIntyre, recently appointed by the Board of Trustees of the South San Francisco Unified School District as Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, to join me tonight to talk about obligation bonds. Ron, thank you for joining me.
Wow, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
How has this happened? Why have school districts found it necessary to go to their communities for additional funding in the form of obligation bonds?
You know, it's very interesting you asked that question, because ever since California became a state in 1850, they went out for general obligation bonds to build the schools. And half the schools that we have in our state today were built with general obligation bonds through World War II, and continuing with state matching up until the taxpayer revolt of Prop 13 in 1978, when there was a freeze and you couldn't go to the public. And so in 1986, Prop 46 allowed school districts to go back out for bonding. And there were a lot of new reasons why. The enrollment growth. Between 1990 and 2000, we had 2.3 million new students. This was the growth, not just kids coming in and others leaving. It was, you know, we have to house these kids, we have to teach them.
An overall increase.
An overall increase. On top of that, Governor Wilson's proposal of class size reduction for kindergarten through third grade, which is a very popular program, taking classes to have them no more than 20 in a class. So if you had two teachers teaching 30 kids each of 60, now you have to have, for every two, a third teacher to have 20 in that class. And now where are you going to put them? You can't just divide up classrooms that have been built. You know, you bought portables, you had to, you know, you had huge unhoused needs throughout the district.
You needed more classrooms.
Right, right. And then on top of all that, we have, you know, we live in earthquake country. Seismic safety issues, the new laws for retrofitting your buildings. When we did it at my prior district, between the time we went out for the bond and by the time we went out for bid for the contract, the rules had changed and the codes required a whole lot more money, and we spent over $2 million on one school alone just for seismic upgrades to make it a safe school. And very, very important. And as soon as you start remodeling and doing anything, you open up all the issues of the codes. Handicap access, American Disabilities Act. The bathrooms aren't adequate anymore to serve these kids. You've got asbestos. You know, as soon as you start getting into those walls and whatever and stirring up tiles, you're exposed to asbestos, and it's very, very costly to remove that, which is no longer allowed to be built in schools. On top of all that, energy costs. You know, energy used to be cheap, and natural gas prices going way up, which drives a lot of the cost of electricity. Electricity rates are 50% higher than just a few years ago. And so energy costs, when you're looking at millions of dollars just paying to light and heat the building, and you've got old-fashioned boilers that were very inefficient. And so all of these, you've got to do part of this just to keep the costs down. And then technology. You know, when I went to school, and probably you too, you know, the technology was
a typewriter.
Right, and a phonograph for audiovisual, and the reel-to-reel movies.
Opaque projector.
Right, and that was it. And we thought that was great.
Exactly.
Now you got DVDs, and you've got to have computers in all the classrooms, and they're not wired for it electrically, let alone all the Cat 6 cable that you're pulling through. So there's a lot to do to just make a classroom that you can teach in the modern environment.
All right, I'm overwhelmed with everything that's got to be done. What is an obligation bond? How does it work?
Okay, basically you go to the public, and first of all you do a needs assessment. What is it that you want to do? And there's certain things you can spend if you go for a bond, and what you can't. This basically is one time in nature. You're going to borrow this money and use it to upgrade, either build new buildings or modernize existing buildings. And the rule basically was, if you can turn the building upside down and it doesn't fall out, you can spend it on that. So if furniture would fall out, so you can't spend it on, furniture. So and then after
they did creative things like attaching things to the wall, workstations to the walls and so forth.
To the walls,
but
right.
With technology and lab sciences and so forth, you could do that.
That's correct.
Sure.
And then you'd find out what you need. You get cost associated with that. You would also have some kind of committee, parent groups, whatever, and board focus groups looking at what do teachers want, what does each school. And with the new rules, you really do need to identify per school what you're going to do and what you intend to do and why.
And that has to be on the ballot.
That is correct. So, and then it takes 2/3 under the old rules of the voters of the school district boundaries at a general election, or 55% with the new rules of the voters to pass that. And then once you've done that, then you have to sell it. And this requires bond counsel and financial advisors, etc. Putting it out there at the right time, because investors have to give you that money, and they're going to want interest for it. But fortunately, if you do it right, it's tax exempt from federal and state taxes.
There are 23 school districts in San Mateo County. How many have gone to their communities to pass obligation bonds?
20 of them. 20 of them.
And successfully? Successfully,
right.
20 of the 23.
Right.
Do you know of any that are pending or coming up soon?
Well, I know Sequoia Unified School District is looking for a $70 million one. Coming up, that's the biggest one that I know of at this time. That's going to be, I think, on this next election in November.
What's the difference between an obligation bond and a parcel tax? We talked about.
Okay. Well, a parcel tax, first of all, can be used for other things. It can be used to enhance salaries. It can be used for music programs. And it can be set up either it's open, like Hillsborough has one that's open like forever, or it could be limited to, say, 7 years, or just however it's put on the ballot. And whatever you say it's going to be used for, that's what it's used for. But it's not based on assessed valuation. The obligation bond at the max can be $30 per 100,000 of value. This is a flat, like $200 or $400 per parcel. And so that's the main differences.
What's usually the term of an obligation bond? I mean, how long is a taxpayer obligated to pay that amount?
In the new rules, it's 25 years. The old one, I think when San Francisco did it and when Jefferson did it, it was 30 years when it's to be paid back.
Is that same with the parcel tax?
No, the parcel tax you collect every year for the length of it, and you may have it 7 years, you may have it for open forever, you may have a COLA inflation factor in it to increase it. It just depends on how you set it up and what you believe that your community wants and will vote for.
In a way, this is one-time money. I mean,
very much so.
Then how does a district maintain facilities? Now, you talked about some significant stuff that districts have to do to keep their facilities up to speed that support the instructional program, as well as just the facilities. After the bond work, the renovation and modernization of buildings is done, how do you continue to maintain that?
That's a very good question, because it's just like I know in South City and in the district I came from. We've just finished up a major project, and so how do we maintain those? And there are several things. One of the rules is you need to have 3% in your general fund earmarked, what's called the routine restricted maintenance account. And so for our district here, it's a little bit less than $2 million must be set aside for maintenance every year. You have a deferred maintenance program, which is in another fund, which you have a 5-year plan that will replace the roofs every so many years based on what type of roof it is. It's all based on state rules, or paint, or carpet, or tile, etc.
Ron, I hate to interrupt you, but we're going to have to take a short break, and I'd like you to stay with us. when we take a look at the obligation bond and what has been accomplished in South San Francisco with their bond work. Don't go away.
In January, it's so nice. While swimming on the sliding ice.
If every single person voted, then it could change the whole world.
If you vote, then your voice is heard.
Even if you don't have an opinion on other stuff, you want to vote for stuff with your community.
One vote can change anything.
Register and vote.
You are a role model for people that are in a couple of years going to vote. And if you don't vote, then they probably won't vote. And then pretty soon we're only going to have like 5 or 6 people in the whole USA voting.
If everyone had the same opinions in the world, it would be boring.
You should vote.
I'd vote if I could.
Well, just go ahead and vote. I mean, you have the whole day. You have 13 hours to vote. Why not just go and vote?
We're counting on you.
Vote on November 2nd.
Prudential California Realty is pleased to support the South San Francisco Unified School District. With several offices located throughout the South Bay, we help home buyers realize their dreams of ownership and sellers maximize their home investment. Prudential California Realty is a longtime partner with education, having created the Education Foundation in 1992, which provides grants to teachers throughout Northern California. Prudential California Realty, your partner in real estate.
Welcome back. We've been talking to Ron McIntyre, Assistant Superintendent, newly appointed Assistant Superintendent of Business Services in the South San Francisco Unified School District, about obligation bonds. And we're joined by Sean Ropp, who's the Director of Facilities at South San Francisco Unified. And we want to talk a little bit about the South San Francisco obligation bond and what it's accomplished since it was voted in 1997. Sean, I know that you've only been with the district for 2 years, and you were brought into this renovation and modernization program near the end of the cycle. But I know you're a quick study, so that's why we have you on. Initially, how was it determined that there was a need for an obligation bond in South San Francisco?
Right, Bruce. Well, bond construction programs on the school side are giant undertakings and require the efforts of all administrators, district office personnel, in addition to the talent that comes from the consulting community. The South San Francisco Unified School District hadn't done a bond program before, and the great need existed. We all hit the ground running. It required an effort by all people considered part of the project, as well as the Board of Trustees and everyone included. In addition to the teamwork required, it required assessing the conditions of the schools before, and conventional wisdom of everyone in the district was that we indeed needed to do some work there. We have people in the district that have been around for a lot of years, and I had the opportunity to discuss with them the conditions of schools prior to the bond, and uniformly everyone agreed that the work was needed, morale was low, it was time to really get in and do something big. I've talked to maintenance staff over the years, and all those people agreed that something larger was needed. So enough organizational inertia had occurred that the Board of Trustees stepped up to the plate in '96 and realized that we had to do something larger, and that's when they realized that they were going to adopt a resolution.
Now, in the initial assessment, how much money did it look like was determined to fulfill this wish list of things that needed to be done?
Well, it was rather more than the 40 that was ultimately approved upon. I think it was closer to $80 million, and it was curbed back as they gauged the impressions of community leaders and a group of people. They determined that one way to get the passage of the bond was to go for rather less and meet the absolute needs that were required for modernization to get us into the next 20 years of occupancy and for the schools.
When did the modernization, renovation and modernization of school sites begin?
Well, it kicked off in earnest in '99, but design phase kicked off right after the Board of Trustees approved, right after, rather, the voters approved the bond. We hired 5 architects. We had 13 contractors going at it in a low-bid environment. It was a big program that required the efforts of a construction management firm that was retained to marshal both the design and construction phases. In addition, we contracted with the Division of State Architect to have some inspectors of record to assure quality control. So it was a lot of players, and it all came together through teamwork.
I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit because I want to make sure we get to the slides so that we can show the viewers the things that were accomplished in South San Francisco. Then maybe we can come back to some of the other things that I wanted to talk about. But the scope of renovation and modernization was very broad and different at the various school sites.
Sure.
What kind of improvements were made? I suppose some are quite visible and some, maybe even most, not so visible. And we've got some slides, as you're sharing with us, we've got some slides the viewers can take a look at.
Right. Well, the spirit of modernization, Bruce, is you're not building new additions or new schools. You're essentially renovating existing facilities. And a lot of what we did do to set up a safe condition where we could occupy the sites for the next 20 years was we dealt with stuff that was inside of the walls. Some of the stuff isn't readily apparent. We were heavy on the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing upgrades. We dealt with considerable weatherproofing issues, both leaking roofs, the exterior envelopes were taken care of. We installed a lot of glazing and windows as well as painting the sites. We implemented an energy management system so that we could control the cost of energy going into PG&E's coffers. One of the second biggest expenditures in the general fund is to PG&E next to salaries. We provided significant ADA access. The state was making sure that we did do that with their generous $28 million contribution to the program. We installed ramps and elevators. Myriad items, including, as I mentioned, new electrical services and mechanical upgrades, significant dry rot repair, data distribution in all classrooms with dovetails with the district's policy to provide connectivity in all classrooms. That's something we've been very firm about and diligent about. We installed new energy efficient lighting in classrooms. We abated most of the existing asbestos floor tile, installed all new low voltage systems, fire alarms, intercoms, and clock speaker systems. Significant dry rot repair. These buildings hadn't been touched since essentially they were built, that is to say, walls open. So once we started opening walls, we encountered a lot of dry rot repair, and that required a lot of effort. We replaced a lot of portables, as also with the bond. So there was a number of things that we did contend with. There were things that were unforeseen that came up that we did grapple with, and we moved through them as they arose. We had to add some seismic steel to Spruce, the old building at Spruce. That was a challenge that we dealt with. We had some gas lines that were failing in the sites due to the fact that it's old steel and it's 40 years old, so they were failing. Electrical services were failing at the adult school. I'm sure you're aware of that. We had to bring a generator on site and pay for plenty of fuel costs. In addition, we had some ceiling repair work we had to do at South San Francisco. But in all cases, we dealt with the issues by using reserves that the district had, and we did everything we could to minimize the impact on the educational program.
So this was a very, very extensive project, and it hasn't concluded?
Right. The last phase was completed last year in the summer of 2003. All schools are occupied, and generally and uniformly everyone agrees that the schools have been vastly improved, and we're delighted. Now it's up to the facilities department, and Ron and I will be working to make sure that we adequately maintain those over the coming years, and so the taxpayers know that we're dealing with their assets, their buildings, in an appropriate way.
I think it's important to point out here that so much of what you described about this project is not the sort of thing that the public's going to see when they walk onto a school grounds. That so much of it is infrastructure and improvements and upgrades that they're never going to see, but the results of it and the improvements in terms of what they're able to offer students in the instructional program is definitely there.
Well put.
What was the total cost of the project?
The bond was just under $80 million, and there was a couple different funding streams for that. As I mentioned,
the bond work was
the bond work. The revenue side was 80, and the bond expenditures were about 84 million. And again, we had district special reserves to cover the overage.
And I understand the initial bond was $40 million.
Correct.
And then that there was some noise abatement money.
True, $8 million from our good neighbors at San Francisco International Airport Commission and the Federal Aviation Authority.
And some matching funds.
Correct. $28 million from the state of California for the modernization work. In addition, we accrued about $3 million in interest. We played the arbitrage game very well there, so that worked out.
Ron, is this pretty consistent, this project, yes, with what you did in Jefferson and what's going on in the county?
Right. This was very similar to Jefferson High School District, which has 5,400 kids compared to South City's 9,400. And our bond was $30 million. We got about $22-23 million from the state for their match for all them. And we modernized 4 comprehensive high schools and rebuilt a continuation high school.
Very good work. Ron McIntyre and Sean Ropp, thank you for joining me on this segment. I think we all have a better picture of why schools need continued local support and what that support can accomplish in a school district. After a short break, we'll meet a delightful young student from Altaloma Middle School who's enjoying school now more than ever before on Student Spotlight. Stay with us.
In January, it's so nice, walking on the sliding ice.
If you live on the peninsula, there's only one place to get the latest news on business, sports, politics, education, and your community. Peninsula TV, Channel 26, the Peninsula and South Bay's Emmy Award-winning programming resource. For more information or for a programming schedule, go to PenTV.tv or call us at 650-637-1936. Peninsula TV, your community programming channel. Join the game's Mark Simon and Bob Marks for live election night coverage. Live election night coverage on Peninsula TV, Channel 26. Get the latest results. Plus analysis about the state and local races. And hear from personalities from throughout the area. Peninsula TV. Peninsula TV, the only place to be on election night. Live November 2nd at 8 p.m. For more details, go to pentv.tv.
Emmy Award-winning Peninsula TV provides a large multifunctional TV studio and video production facility, state-of-the-art equipment, and affordable prices. Let our professional staff and crew produce your company or organization's next video, or create your own TV series and air it on one of the Bay Area's largest community cable channels. Contact Peninsula TV at pentv.tv or call 650-637-1936.
In the Student Spotlight this week is Emily Coop, a 6th grade student at Altaloma Middle School. With her is Mary Schaefer, Emily's teacher at Ponderosa Elementary School. Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Mrs. Schaefer, hi. Welcome to Student Spotlight. Emily, what did you think when you were told that you were going to be on TV on a segment called Student Spotlight?
I was excited.
You were excited? You don't look very excited. Were you excited? What did you do? Did you tell everybody?
Yeah.
And what'd they say?
They said they were going to watch it.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope everybody watches it. Emily, before you came to Ponderosa School, school wasn't very much fun for you. You weren't very happy. How come?
Well, I wasn't learning a lot with as many students that there was in my class.
So you were in a school that had large class size. How many students were in your class?
37.
37, and that made it difficult for you to learn? And then something really fortunate happened for you, didn't it? You were transferred over to Ponderosa Elementary School in South San Francisco. When was that? What grade?
3rd grade.
3rd grade? In the spring of 3rd grade, I think it was? And you didn't meet Mrs. Schaefer right away, did you?
No.
No. Mrs. Schaefer, maybe you can tell us how you became aware of Emily and became a part of her school life.
Emily came to me in about the springtime of the 3rd grade year, so she wasn't really having much success in the classroom she was in. So that's when we decided that it would be time to have an IEP.
An IEP is?
Right, which stands for Individual Education Plan. And a team comes together, which includes the parents, the principal, teachers, and we put together an education plan for the student. And she is, she was transferred to my class, which also has fewer students in it than the general ed classroom.
And Emily made progress.
She made astounding progress.
Dramatic progress.
Exactly. By the time she started her 4th grade year, her confidence and her just participation in the classroom had dramatically improved, which was different from what we had noticed the previous year. She was very quiet.
Skill levels?
Skill levels, there was once we did the testing, over a year's worth of growth that she had made, which is not typically seen.
And she made that growth in how long period of time? How long?
In about 6 to 7 months worth of time.
So that ability was there. It just needed to be tapped.
Exactly.
With a different approach.
Different approach, smaller class size, and a bit of a slower pace.
What role did Emily's parents play in her school improvement?
They were the key. They were absolutely phenomenal. They were supportive of her placement from the beginning. They came in and observed in the classroom before Emily was even placed there. So they were very enthusiastic, very supportive. They were supportive of all their children. They make education a priority in their family.
Now you saw significant academic growth in Emily. How else did you see Emily grow?
She has a great sense of humor, and that started to come out too, and just a great personality, fun to be around, and just she was able to give a lot in the classroom once her skills started to develop.
Emily, last school year you were asked by Mrs. Ingersoll, your principal at Ponderosa Elementary School, to do something pretty special. What was that?
To go to the board meeting and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
So you were invited to the Board of Trustees meeting as a student representing your school to lead the Pledge of Allegiance at a school board meeting. You must have been very proud. And I think your parents probably were too. That's pretty neat. Congratulations to you. Emily, now you're at middle school, Altaloma Middle School. How do you like middle school?
It's fun, and it's fun to switch periods. And
how is it different than elementary school?
Well, in elementary school, you stay in one class, and
all day long. You're in one class, one teacher, pretty much.
And you have recess. We don't get recess.
No recess in middle school.
No.
But you switch classes from time to time, and that's kind of neat. And you're in school with a lot more kids than you were at Ponderosa too, huh? That's pretty neat. Is Emily's story unique?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. She, the key to her success was she had a supportive family, and she was driven. She was very driven in wanting to reach her own goals.
And what can this say to other parents who maybe have students like Emily who are struggling in class?
Get involved, be there, supportive, and
do you have a quick story about Emily? You two are grinning at each other. Do you have an Emily story?
No, I don't have an Emily story. I just, I'm listening. Sorry, I can't think.
I think there's a neat relationship between the two of you. I know when I went and saw Emily at Altaloma Middle School interacting with her friends there in class and her teachers, and when I told her that you were going to be on the program with her, she thinks she was a little reluctant at first, but when I told her you were going to be on the program with her, her eyes sparkled and she smiled and gave a big grin and she said, "That's great." So I think there's really a special bond there. Emily, thank you. Ms. Schaefer, thank you for being on with me. Thank you to Ron McIntyre and Sean Ropp earlier in the show. And remember, in South San Francisco, we know our children are our future. See you next time.